My name's Erwin, and this is the Poetry Lighthouse podcast. In today's episode, I had the pleasure to interview the book cover designer, Suzanne Dean, who will take us through some of her most popular works and her creative process. I would like to talk about the other cover that you've made, Norwegian Wood. I went to the blurb and I can see that there is some kind of hints that are very essential about the story of this book. And would you be able to tell us what exactly were you thinking when you created this cover?
Oh, it's interesting. It's an interesting background to this. So Norwegian Wood, well, Murakami is one of my favorite authors to work on. And that book cover is part of a whole series of designs that have become quite iconic. And they all have a big circle on them.
Yeah.
And so when I designed that series, I decided that I would just use Haruki Murakami's surname in a very bold way. And the title would always be in the same font at the base. And then there would be a circle on each cover, and each cover would have an illustration by the artist Noma Bar. And there's a limited palette as well. So I gave him a palette. And so some of the backgrounds of the covers are black, some are off-white, and some are red. And so it moves around, but you can see it's almost like a branding exercise. It was so strong as a series, the whole lot of them together. And so the reason I chose Noma Bar was that he's very clever on images where you see one thing and then you see another. And I think that reflects also Murakami in the way that he writes and how he has a surreal side to his work and what's there, what's not there, etc. So they felt to me like a very good match. And so the picture you see there, of course, is suggesting the people involved and also the trees and where a very important scene in the book takes place, and the fact that it's about people, but it's called Norwegian Wood. And so there are all those double visual meanings to the cover. So it's very interesting, yeah. And hence the little triangles that suggest feet, but they're also so obviously trees as well.
Of course,
so, yeah. So now you know.
Now I know.
But I thought you'd be interested in, and you probably haven't seen these because they've only just come out. But I've recently done Norwegian Wood again, but as a special classic. And so these have just come out. Can you see this?
Oh, that's gorgeous. Yeah, that looks really nice. Yeah.
There's Norwegian Wood, and there's Kafka on the Shore, and the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. And I'll show you what happens. What's so lovely. They're called these in Japan and in Asia. They have like obis, which are thick belly bands. And so when you take it off, you just have, once you bought it, you just have the book cover with no lettering, but from just a tiny bit on the spine.
That's
and the whole each different book has been illustrated by a Japanese illustrator. And so there's another 3 coming, I think it is, which I've just had approved by Murakami. So it's a nice series, but completely different to the approach that you've got in your hands, but also interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty nice, because normally when you have this hard covers, they're oftentimes they have like this dust jacket, and then inside it's just the color. And the fact that this is like the artistic part is actually the real cover,
yes,
not just
exactly. So minimal, nothing on the front cover, no type. That's always a joy, and they're quite collectible. And so the idea is it's for people who know and love the books and want a special edition on their shelves.
Yeah, I
And they've
think.
been very, very popular so far. So that's good too.
Yeah. Do you have any more projects from this author?
Well, there'll be a new book which is, I think, being translated at the moment. So that's on the horizon. And as I said, I've got some more in this special series going through. And yeah, that's it at the moment. But I love
Fantastic.
working on his books. They're very beautifully written and intriguing, and lots of interesting and surprising imagery within them. So it's always great for a designer to work on books like that. It's I can remember when I read it, I was on a train when I started reading it. I was like, oh, it's just a wonderful book. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, I
It's
can't wait to
fantastic.
read
It's
it.
got the Beatles in it. It's got Japan from the 60s and the relationships and emotions, and it's wonderful.
It must be really nice to also work on works whose author is from another country or like that, involves other cultures in it because you have to think as well about, is this the image that I want to portray about, I don't know, a certain country? And do you do any kind of research?
We do loads of research and mood boards and try to be accurate, and that's why it can be so fantastic working, say, from with Japanese illustrators, because the person who worked on Norwegian wood knew what would be there, what buildings were there in Tokyo in the period the book was set, and there's an accuracy there that matches up with the essence of the books. So I'm very aware of commissioning right and commissioning um, something that matches the tone, and I'm trying to be sympathetic to the countries, where you get that diversity, etc.
Yeah, actually, now that
It's
I see
fantastic.
the
Sorry.
colors of the Japanese flag, so
Yeah,
it's almost
yeah,
like the inverting the colors, the red and white.
yes. I mean,
It,
that was why I gave the palette. It was a sort of an easy route for those signals, and also the circle is another signal, isn't it?
yeah.
But it's very neat, and it's
Mhm.
it's a successful way to give somebody an identity and for it to be very strong and recognizable, which I think is quite important.
And it's really nice that it comes in this format for the other books that he's done, so that you can collect them and kind of see them. So it would be pleasant to have the collection at home and be able to put them next to each other. And I think it's always nice to have this kind of series of books that you can always come back to, because oftentimes when you have a book that's been serialized and do not have the same type of cover, it might seem like a different story, and in
Yeah.
this case you kind of like emerged in the same world, and I think that's really nice,
Well,
especially.
I like series when you work on it. It can be tricky because you want to give a whole look to the whole of the series, but you also have to give each book its individual attention. And of course, it's a individual book,
Mhm.
completely different be in tone and content to the next book, but they have to work together. So it's a conundrum for a designer.
Yeah, as well, maybe to have like a specific style for a specific author, like maybe the story is completely different, but because it's the same author, maybe kind of trying to do something similar to a book cover that
Yeah.
you've done before.
Well, this is why these are all completely different, as you
Yes.
see, but they have such a strong branding with the belly band there that you can be very, very different with who you choose to illustrate the book. And that's how you get around that one.
Yeah, so that when you go to, in a bookstore, you're like, ah, this is from this author. I know him.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's brilliant. It's
Yeah,
really
I like to
interesting.
encourage people to go and buy the whole series. Absolutely. Have it on their shelves.
Amazing. And do you like if these are well, I have these two covers, but I was wondering what cover have you enjoyed working on the most? Do you
Oh,
have
no,
or
impossible. Impossible to answer. No, it's and it changes all the time, and it can be something that you've just finished that you're very pleased with,
yeah.
or it, it can be from years ago that you still like. I can't answer that question.
And do you have any um I know that you can't talk about the projects that you're working at the moment, but the most recent one, which one has have you done recently?
So I have just redesigned Ian McEwan's catalogue of titles. So that's 18 books. And his latest hardback cover was Lessons by Ian McEwan, obviously.
Mhm.
But I commissioned Tina Burning to do the illustration on that, and she's a German, Berlin-based illustrator. And the book um, starts in the late 1950s, early 60s, with a young boy at his piano at a boarding school in England. And I took reference from book covers of that period as my starting point. And Ian McEwan had sent me a picture he had on his wall of uh, a young girl playing the piano, and there was a very tender spot of the neck from behind. And so that was sort of part of the brief. And Tina did an amazing illustration that was in very bright blocks of color, orange and sort of magenta pink with, with a dark blue drawing. And it was very graphic, very bold, and completely reinvented his look. And that led to 18 different covers being redesigned, and they all work with a panel at the top. And so, like I've been saying about Murakami having that belly band, these have a band at the top. And I've commissioned a range of illustrators, and that's sort of what holds it together. But I'm really pleased with them, and 18 of them, and I'm in the process of getting them ready to go to print. So I think that's my latest thing that I'm so proud of.
That's pretty nice. I've seen that cover many times already. It's quite popular at the moment, and I really like the fact that they made like the contrast between the orange and the pink because it these are two colors that I mean we might consider them to be very similar, but it really makes a sort of like a contrast in
Yes. And
like
there's
yeah.
something very um, reminiscent and nostalgic about the approach and the style. It riffs on that, but it's been done in a different way that is very contemporary as well. So um, there's that clever mix of, and balance. It's new, but it hints at various different things, which the book's about a life. So yeah.
And in this whole process in which you come up with the idea and create it, so do you first make like a sketch on a piece of paper and then translate it into a computer, or how does it work?
Um, I do sketch ideas down, and I do a lot of doodling and thinking things through still. Like I might be reading a book, and at the back of it there's lots of little tiny sketches of I could do this, I could do that. um, that doesn't stop as a way of thinking, but I would say that working on the Mac and dropping things in and moving things around digitally is as important for me. There's no logical defined way that I work. It depends. It just evolves, I think. And I do get my paintbrush out and my inks, and I paint things as a way of working things through too.
What advice would you give to
Mm.
people who would like to start their careers as book cover designers and think you might be perfectly suited
Uh,
to answer?
I would definitely advise everyone to go out, start collecting inspiration, experiment, create your own covers for your favorite books, have that in your portfolio. And once you've started working in publishing, I would say not to stay too long in each place, to sort of have a broader range of types of books. So if you've landed a job in, an imprint that does crime, try to then move to somewhere and try to do literary books or nonfiction books. I think that's really important. I try to give all my designers a range so that it makes their life more interesting. And also it means that you have more strings to your bow. You have a
Yes.
better range of what your special subject is. And I think that's really important to quality of design life too. And so anyone that was starting out, I would say don't get stuck, have a range and experiment, play. That's the most important part. And then if you play and push things around, don't just think that's the answer straight away. It's more likely to have something interesting come out at the end.
That's a really nice message. Oh, and lastly, I would like
Oh,
to
yes.
ask in which platforms we can find your work.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't tend to do sort of very many. Instagram is where I post new covers, and that's where you find me, or in a bookshop.
Fantastic.
All right, lovely to meet you, and I hope I see more of your interviews, and I'll look out for you. And keep in touch, and I hope it goes really, really well. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck.
Thank you so much. You too.
Okay,
Good luck
take
with
care
your
then.
projects. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Poetry Lighthouse. If you liked this episode, don't forget to share and subscribe to our podcast. You can also visit our website, thepoetrylighthouse.com, where you can read and submit your works of poetry and short stories. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram to keep updated. This is the end of the episode. Thanks again, and see you next time.